I sacrificed my life savings for my son's dream business, only to become the embarrassment he hides from his new friends. Stay until the end to discover how I found my own worth after years of feeling invisible. I remember the exact moment I decided to give Thomas my retirement savings. We were sitting at my kitchen table, the same oak table where I'd helped him with homework 25 years earlier. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he spread his business plans across the worn surface, pointing to projections and market analyses that might as well have been written in hieroglyphics to me. But I understood hope. I understood dreams. And more than anything, I understood the desperate need of a mother to see her child succeed. "Mom, this is it. This is my chance to build something real," Thomas said, his voice carrying that same determination I'd heard when he was 8 and decided he would build the best treehouse in the neighborhood. At 63, I had just finalized my retirement after 37 years of teaching 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary. My retirement fund wasn't extravagant by any means, $387,000 that I'd carefully saved, along with my modest teacher's pension. It was meant to provide me with comfort and security in my remaining years. Maybe a small cottage by the lake. Perhaps those cooking classes in Italy I'd always dreamed about. But looking at Thomas that day, I saw something I hadn't seen in years: purpose. After drifting between jobs since college, struggling with direction, here he was, finally passionate about something. How could any mother say no to that? "I'll need startup capital," he explained, pointing to a section of his business plan. "The bank will only finance part of it. I've been saving, but I'm still short about $300,000. $300,000. The number hung in the air between us. That was most of my retirement fund, the culmination of nearly 4 decades of careful planning and sacrifice. "I'll pay you back, Mom. With interest. Once CloudServe takes off, you'll get it all back and more." I believed him. That was 3 years ago. The early days were a whirlwind of excitement. Thomas rented a small office space in downtown Portland. I helped him paint the walls, assemble the IKEA furniture, and stock the break room with coffee and snacks. He hired 2 young programmers fresh out of college, and they worked around the clock developing their cloud storage platform for small businesses. I'd bring them homemade meals, making sure they ate something besides pizza and energy drinks. Thomas would give me quick hugs, introducing me proudly to his small team. "This is my mom, Eleanor. None of this would be possible without her." I felt needed, important, part of something bigger than myself. 6 months in, they landed their first major client. I still remember the phone call. "Mom, Green Bay Manufacturing signed on. It's a 2-year contract," Thomas was practically shouting. "We're going to celebrate tonight. I'll pick you up at 7. That night at the upscale restaurant downtown, Thomas ordered champagne. He raised his glass to me. To the woman who made it all possible. His 2 employees, Mike and Jason, clinked their glasses against mine. "To Eleanor," they echoed. I felt tears in my eyes. In that moment, I had no regrets. This was what retirement funds were for, wasn't it? To create happiness. And seeing my son this happy, this fulfilled, was worth every penny. The business grew steadily that first year. Thomas moved to a larger office space in a trendy part of town. He hired more staff, young, energetic professionals with degrees from prestigious universities. The company culture evolved: casual Friday happy hours, team-building retreats. The intimacy of those early days faded as CloudServe transformed from a scrappy startup into a legitimate company. My visits became less frequent. The office environment intimidated me somewhat, all those young people with their technical jargon and inside jokes. Still, I'd stop by every couple of weeks with homemade cookies or muffins. Thomas would emerge from his glass-walled office, give me a quick hug, and take the treats to the break room. "Thanks, Mom. We're in the middle of something right now, but I'll call you this weekend, okay?" He rarely called. The first time I noticed a shift in how Thomas treated me was at the company's first anniversary party. He'd rented out the rooftop of a downtown hotel. There were caterers, an open bar, and even a small jazz band. I wore my best dress, a navy blue A-line I'd bought for my retirement party, and my pearl earrings, a gift from my late husband. I arrived early, helping the event coordinator arrange some of the decorations. When Thomas arrived with a group of people I didn't recognize, I waved excitedly. "Thomas, over here." His smile faltered slightly as he approached. "Mom, I didn't realize you'd be here so early. I wanted to help set up. Who are your friends?" He glanced back at the group, who were now mingling near the bar. "Oh, just some potential investors. Listen, Mom, could you maybe help out in the kitchen? The caterers might need an extra hand." I didn't understand then what was happening. I nodded and made my way to the kitchen, where the professional staff politely but firmly informed me they didn't need assistance. I spent most of that evening on the periphery, watching Thomas charm the room, only occasionally acknowledging me with a nod or a brief introduction as my mother, with no elaboration about my role in funding his company. By the end of year 2, CloudServe had become a regional success story. Thomas was featured in a business magazine as one of the 30 under 40 entrepreneurs to watch. The article detailed his vision, his work ethic, his innovative approach to cloud solutions for small businesses. It mentioned that he had secured initial funding through personal savings and private investors. Not a word about his mother's retirement fund. When I called to congratulate him on the article, he seemed distracted. "Thanks, Mom. Listen, I'm heading into a meeting. Can I call you back?" He didn't. The incident that finally opened my eyes happened 6 months ago. Thomas had invited me to the grand opening of their new headquarters, a full floor in one of Portland's most prestigious office buildings. I spent hours getting ready, had my hair done at the salon, and wore a new outfit I'd splurged on. When I arrived, the reception area was bustling with people in business attire. I gave my name to the receptionist. "I'm Eleanor Wilson, Thomas's mother." She smiled politely. "Of course, Mrs. Wilson. The event is in the main conference room. Let me show you the way." As we walked through the open-plan office, I marveled at how far Thomas had come. Glass-walled meeting rooms, sleek workstations, a stunning view of the city. My $300,000 had helped build this. The conference room was packed with people networking, drinking champagne, and sampling hors d'oeuvres. I spotted Thomas in deep conversation with an older gentleman in an expensive-looking suit. I made my way toward him, excusing myself as I navigated through the crowd. "Thomas," I called when I was a few feet away. He turned, and for a split second, I saw it, a flash of something like dismay crossing his face before he composed himself. "Mom, you made it." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, reaching to hug him. He stepped back slightly, offering a quick pat on my arm instead. "This is Harold Brennan from Venture Northwest," he said to the man beside him. Then to Harold, "My mother. Just my mother. Not the woman who believed in him when no one else would. Not the person who gave him her life savings. Just my mother, as if I were merely a biological footnote in his life story." "Nice to meet you," Harold said, shaking my hand briefly before turning back to Thomas. "As I was saying about the Series B funding," I stood there awkwardly for a moment before Thomas glanced at me. "Mom, why don't you get something to eat? The catering is excellent." "I need to finish this conversation with Harold." I nodded and walked away, my cheeks burning. For the rest of the event, Thomas kept his distance. When he gave a speech thanking his team, his investors, his mentors, I waited for my acknowledgement. It never came. As the event wound down, I approached him again. "The new office is beautiful, Thomas. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished." He smiled tightly. "Thanks, Mom. Hey, I've got to mingle. Why don't you head home? You must be tired." It was only 8:30 p.m. On the drive home, I finally allowed myself to face what I'd been avoiding for months. My son was ashamed of me, of my simple clothes, my outdated hairstyle, my lack of business acumen. I was a reminder of his modest beginnings, an uncomfortable presence among his new sophisticated circle. The following weekend, I invited Thomas for Sunday dinner, something we used to do regularly before CloudServe. To my surprise, he accepted. I spent all day preparing his favorites: pot roast with rosemary potatoes, homemade rolls, and apple pie for dessert. When he arrived, he seemed distracted, checking his phone every few minutes. "How's business?" I asked as we sat down to eat. "Good, busy. We're looking at expanding to Seattle next quarter." "That's wonderful. And what about the money situation? I was wondering when you might be able to start paying back some of the investment." I tried to keep my tone casual, but the question had been weighing on me for months. My teacher's pension covered the basics, but unexpected expenses were becoming increasingly stressful. Thomas put down his fork. Mom, we've talked about this. The company is still reinvesting most of its profits. I can't just pull out cash. I understand that. But I did give you most of my retirement savings. Even a small monthly repayment would help me. He sighed. I told you this was a long-term investment. CloudServe is doing well, but we're not at the point where I can start repaying yet. When, then? I pressed. I'm not getting any younger, Thomas. I don't know, he snapped. Maybe you shouldn't have invested if you couldn't afford to wait for returns. His words stung like a slap. Invested? Is that what we're calling it now? I gave you that money because you're my son and you needed help. And I'm grateful, Mom. I am. But business is business. We finished the meal in uncomfortable silence. As he was leaving, I tried once more. Thomas, there's a mother-son dance at the community center next Saturday. I thought maybe we could go, like we used to when you were little. He looked at me as if I'd suggested we fly to the moon. Mom, I'm 35, not 8, and I have a business dinner that night anyway, maybe another time. But there never was another time. Our relationship continued to deteriorate. My calls went to voicemail more often than not. Invitations were declined with increasingly thin excuses. The few times we did see each other, Thomas seemed impatient to leave, checking his watch and mentioning early meetings the next day. The final straw came last month. I was downtown, having lunch with my friend Barbara, when I spotted Thomas entering the same restaurant with a group of people in business attire. I waved, excited by the coincidence. He saw me. I know he did. Our eyes met across the restaurant. But instead of coming over to say hello, he quickly turned away, guiding his group to a table on the far side of the room, his back to me. Isn't that Thomas? Barbara asked. Yes, I said, my voice small. But he's busy with work colleagues. Well, that's no excuse not to say hello to his mother, Barbara huffed, starting to rise from her seat. I grabbed her arm. Please don't. He's ashamed of me, Barbara. Saying it out loud broke something inside me. Tears welled in my eyes. What are you talking about, Eleanor? Why would he be ashamed of you? I told her everything then. The money, the gradual distancing, the increasingly obvious embarrassment. By the end, Barbara was furious. After everything you've done for him? The ungrateful little... Please, I interrupted. I don't want to make a scene. Let's just go. As we left, I didn't look in Thomas's direction. I couldn't bear to see if he was watching me leave, or worse, if he was oblivious to my departure. That night, alone in my apartment, the same apartment I'd lived in for the past 15 years, not the lakeside cottage I'd dreamed of for retirement, I took a hard look at my life. I'd given everything to Thomas. My time, my love, my financial security. And somehow, it still wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. The realization was painful, but necessary. I couldn't continue like this, holding on to hope that my son would suddenly see me again, value me again. I needed to reclaim my life, what was left of it. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I explained my situation, how I'd given my son most of my retirement savings with a verbal agreement that he would repay me. The lawyer was sympathetic, but straightforward. Without a written agreement, this will be difficult, Mrs. Wilson. And frankly, suing your son might permanently damage your relationship. The relationship is already damaged, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I just want what's rightfully mine. We drafted a formal letter requesting repayment of the $300,000 loan with reasonable interest within 90 days. The lawyer advised me that this was the first step in what might become a legal battle, but it was necessary to establish my intent to collect. When Thomas received the letter, he called immediately. For the first time in months, he didn't let my call go to voicemail. A lawyer, Mom? Seriously? He sounded more hurt than angry. I didn't know how else to get through to you, Thomas. You don't return my calls. You're embarrassed to be seen with me, but you're still happy to keep my retirement money. That's not fair. I've been building this business, our investment. No, Thomas. Your business. You made that very clear when you stopped acknowledging my contribution, when you became ashamed of your own mother. I'm not ashamed of you, he protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Then why did you ignore me at Lorenzo's last month? Why do you never have time for me anymore? Why wasn't I mentioned in that magazine article about your personal savings and private investors? Silence stretched between us. I want my money back, Thomas. Not all at once, if that's not possible. But a payment plan, something formal, something that recognizes what I gave up for you. More silence. Then, I'll have my CFO work something out. His CFO, not him. As if this were just another business transaction. Fine, I said. Have them contact my lawyer. After hanging up, I expected to feel terrible, guilty, heartbroken. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. For the first time in years, I was standing up for myself, putting my needs first. The following week, I received a formal repayment proposal from CloudServe's financial officer. 5 years of monthly payments with modest interest. Not ideal, but fair enough. My lawyer reviewed it and advised me to accept. That same day, I made another decision. I enrolled in an art class at the community college, something I'd always wanted to do, but had put off. I joined a book club at the local library. I volunteered at an animal shelter walking dogs on Saturday mornings. I started living for myself again. Thomas and I have spoken a few times since then, brief, civil conversations. The monthly payments arrive on time. But our relationship remains strained, a shadow of what it once was. Sometimes I wonder if it will ever recover, if he'll ever see me as more than an obligation, a remnant of a past he's trying to outgrow. But here's what I've learned at 66 years old. I matter. My dreams matter. My life matters. Not just as Thomas's mother, but as Eleanor Wilson, artist, reader, dog walker, friend. I gave my son my retirement savings because I believed in him. Now I'm learning to believe in myself again. Last week, I received a letter from CloudServe. Inside was an invitation to their 5th anniversary gala next month. Handwritten at the bottom, in Thomas's familiar scrawl, "I'd be honored if you would attend, Mom. We wouldn't be here without you." It's a small gesture. Perhaps too little, too late. But as I pinned the invitation to my refrigerator, I felt a flicker of hope. Not that things would go back to how they were. I've grown too much for that. But that maybe, just maybe, Thomas is growing too. I haven't decided if I'll attend the gala yet. But if I do, I'll go as myself. Eleanor Wilson, a woman who gave everything for her son's dreams and is now, finally, pursuing her own.